We earn money, save money and buy things. Living beyond the economic cycle is impossible. What trends are dictated by world markets and how does it affect consumers? Watch it in People and Economy. $2 billion. This money can be used in repairing 7,000 kilometers of roads, purchasing and planting 8 million birch and spruce trees, or send 2 million people on journey. This is also a total amount of consumer loans taken by people of Kazakhstan last year. In most cases, credits are used on buying cars, household appliances, home repairing or education. No, I cannot borrow you money because soon I have to repay my credit. Joly set all her financial priorities long time ago. Firstly, she pays her loan interests and for communal services, and only after that buys food products and goes to the cinema. In her 23, the girl understood the importance of budget planning and how the low level of financial education could cause a number of problems. I could not pay for my education, so I had to take a loan. I took it in the first available bank at a rate of 18%. Later, when I calculated everything once again, I realized that it was as much as 25%. Because of that, I decided to refinance my loan in another bank with a lower interest rate. Credit is truly considered the most popular banking service throughout the world, and Kazakhstan is not an exception. The availability of loans and reduction of interest rates attract a lot of consumers. In the meantime, showy banners sometimes force buyers to make needless purchases. Psychologists say that most of people are pleased with their purchases only until it comes time of the first repayment. Then for many people, credits turn into a real burden. Moreover, overdue loans can incur penalties. A non-payment during 1 month entails a fine. Meanwhile, neglecting to pay interest for more than 5 times can lead to the denial to leave the native country. As for malicious non-payers, they will even have to speak in court. Financial mismanagement can result in huge debts to the bank, financial experts say. According to them, more than 50% of people do not know how to manage their finances in the right way. Thus, many purchases consist of goods they do not really need. Because of that, it is recommended to estimate the amount to be paid. Here you do not even need a calculator, as everything can be calculated on proper websites. Along with looking through the good catalogs, our site visitors can also compare them by means of the loan comparison calculator. Apart from online advising, people can use many other services such as to top up a deposit, open a credit, make sure of salary payment or check all current debts. All these operations can take only few minutes. Now there is a trend towards e-services for clients instead of inviting them to the office. The traditional ways of payment nowadays have been replaced by new technologies. Statistically, almost 15% of payments are realized without the usage of cash machines. Meanwhile, in some Western countries, more than 50% of people prefer non-cash transactions. New generations will perhaps affect their payments by means of smartphones, even without the usage of proximity cards. Along with payment methods, loan-taking procedures are also being facilitated. Now piles of paper documents, as well as advisory managers, are becoming the thing of the past. The most popular online credits in Kazakhstan vary from $100 to $230 and make up almost 70% of all the credits. Loans from $250 to $400 are in the second place and account for 22%. 8% are credits between $400 and $500. The terms of loan repayment usually do not exceed 3 months. The world's most reliable financial institutions are located in Europe, rating agencies report. And it is impossible not to mention Switzerland, which is also sometimes called the country of banks. Each second millionaire has there a bank account. The reason for that is the confidentiality of deposits and the status of the Swiss franc as the most stable currency. Crediting is the most popular service in European countries. More than 30% of adults living in this region have at least one account payable. For example, more than 60% of families in Poland, Czech Republic and Hungary have consumer credits. Meanwhile, in Germany, taking a loan is only possible upon reaching the age of 18. The statistics shows that each 10th German citizen under 20 buys a car or furniture for the first time with the help of a bank. Nevertheless, most of adults prefer to use their own savings for this purpose. They give more preference to deposits. It is true that each second citizen of Germany has a bank deposit. They are very thrifty depositors and their incomes are very high. Because of that, they prefer to buy everything at their own expense. Specialists say that almost 98% of borrowers pay off their loans in due time because any European citizen needs a good credit history. Indeed, only a 1-month delay in loan interest payment will result in the inclusion of the bank customer into the blacklist for a period of 10 years. The Danes, Austrians and Finns also have a reputation of active borrowers. The average loan amount in these countries makes up 3,000 to 5,000 euros per person. The Germans aged between 18 and 20 will never be given a loan exceeding 4,000 euros. Those over 20 can count on a credit in excess of 5,000 euros. The largest possible loans of almost 10,000 euros are given to people from the age of 50. The economy regime of Europeans has also affected the world of banks. In order to save some part of time and money, all local financial institutions have shifted to the online mode. Even now, almost 150 million people use internet banking services. Citizens of the Netherlands are the most active. On the average, 2 of 3 Dutchmen effect payments via the World Wide Web. In France and in Sweden, more than 60% of residents also prefer e-payments to long queues in banks. In their banks, there are always less people than in our banks and in banks of post-Soviet countries. Instead of advisors, there are self-service terminals and cash machines with numerous functions which allow to perform a lot of standard operations for physical persons. Residents of Asia have also become active borrowers despite the fact that they traditionally avoid living in credit and have the world's largest savings. The credit boom has triggered the economic growth of the majority countries in the region and strengthening of national currencies. Japan has a reputation of a banking giant of the Asian region. Thousands of financial institutions attract customers not only by the stability of the national currency, but by innovations as well. However, while for some people know-how have become a tangible time-saving, for others they turned into a loss of incomes. In fact, the majority of Japanese banks have replaced their managers with robots. They can answer questions of any customers, even if they are foreigners, as they recognize 19 languages. Using of robots in the banking sphere is quite possible. For example, they can be used instead of managers and provide customers with some elementary data in various languages. It is very comfortable. I think that in future robots in banks will be indispensable. And even plastic cards today are no more necessary. Many people of Japan pay for their purchases with their palms via so-called biometric cash machines. To conduct a transaction will only require to put your hand on the scanner. Banks need to improve the consumer demand. In China, for example, is now experiencing an economic slowdown. So how can they improve the economy? Creating a high consumer demand is the only way out. What does consumer demand mean? It is when people have money and they visit cafes and restaurants, when they buy clothes, cars and houses. Spending by people their money gives rise to the development of small and medium businesses.
Когда люди делают траты, развивается малый и средний бизнес.
The majority borrowers of Chinese banks are people aged from 20 to 45 with upper middle incomes. Due to such popularity of credits in China, there are almost no borrowers who delay their payments. It is explained by the fact that debt repayment in that country is a matter of honor. The US is also known as a native land of credits. Statistically, each adult American has at least 3 credit cards in his wallet. Local residents have become so used to debts that almost do not feel such a burden and regard paying interest as, for instance, communal payments.
Они очень хорошо могут, сказать,
They can smartly use their financial products. For example, a person has 3 credit cards. Today he has to pay one of credits, and he does it by means of other credit card. In such a way, people refinance their credits and manage their money.
И вот такой вот круговорот денег, на самом деле, когда люди управляют деньгами банков, постоянно перекредитовываясь, рефинансируя кредиты свои.
Housing loans are the most popular. Each 10th house in the US was bought on credit. This statistics is stipulated by high rent prices and low mortgage rates, which make up about 4%. Because of that, taking a bank loan and buying a house will be much cheaper than renting it, despite the fact that the average term of a loan is 30 years. Education loans have the same terms.
Люди очень любят кредиты, то есть и очень много живут в кредит. Но нужно понимать разницу, что
Loan rate in the US can be only 2% and mortgage rate from 1.5 to 2% per year.
Или ипотека может стоить 1,5–2% годовых в долларах.
Car loans in the US are taken with the same frequency. The maximum term of such credits is 5 years. The interest rate varies between 4 and 10%. Some banks even offer interest-free loans for a minimum term of 2 years. Car or house repair loans are most in demand. Having a credit history is very important for Americans. Indeed, it is even impossible to open a bank account without it. As a result, almost everyone in the US is trying to acquire the reputation of a good borrower. For this purpose, some people deliberately take short-term loans and repay them within a short period of time. In some banks, loan interest rates even depend on customers' credit history. Largest banks all over the world are reducing their staff. Only during the last year, more than 20,000 bank workers in a number of countries lost their jobs. Clerks and advisors are often replaced by self-service terminals and websites. Replenishing your deposit or getting the information on your debt balance is now possible by means of a smartphone. Analysts report that as many as 35% of mobile phone owners all over the world are customers of mobile banking. Mobile applications for utility services are now most in demand. Online purchases or electronic wallet are in the second position. Money transfer apps are in the third place. To avoid heavy costs during loan repayment, specialists recommend people to estimate their abilities beforehand and conduct a comparative analysis of banks. In fact, hasty decisions usually lead to further unpleasant situations. Buying any kind of service, be it some card or some complex service like a bank loan, we should thoroughly learn the agreement terms. In addition, we should not hesitate to ask questions, take it seriously, and dedicate some time to it. We should never sign agreements, take goods, or use some services in a hasty manner. Even after choosing the most appropriate variant, we should always remember that nobody is insured against financial problems. If interest payment has become burdensome, we can ask a bank for refinancing or loan rescheduling. To do that, we should send a written inquiry to the bank management. There, it is necessary to describe in details the situation and apply all proving documents such as, for example, a certificate of job loss or hospital release form. According to the statistics, residents of CIS countries spend about 25% of their salaries on loan repayments. In the US, this figure reaches 40%. In some European countries, bank loan repayments, mainly mortgages, exceed 55%. Have you forgotten to return the money you borrowed until the payday or still have bank debts? Tell your creditors about the world's worst debtor, Frenchman Joly, in order to make them understand that your debts are nothing in comparison with his. Once being a stock gambler, he put at stake almost $7 billion. Moreover, all this money did not belong to him but to the bank where he worked as a broker. Eventually, he lost this sum. As a result, the failed gambler was sentenced to several years in prison and obliged to compensate all losses.